Up to Pei Amid Aleph, we're up to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ein Mevi'in loy mibeis hazvalim. You're not able to bring grain, according to Rashi. This is referring to the Omer and the Shtei Alechem. You're not allowed to bring it from fertilized fields. The reason being is because fertilized fields, it's a shayla, what's the reason? Either fertilized fields, there's a concern that you didn't fertilize it properly, so the grain is not very strong, or fertilized smells bad, so the grain is going to have a weird odor. It's not bakavidik. And you can't bring the grain from irrigated fields. This is fields that are not getting enough rainwater that you had to irrigate. Apparently, the grain that grows in irrigated fields is shvach, and therefore it's not bakavidik. And not from a field that has a lot of trees. If there's grain that's growing near trees, the trees will sap the energy from the grain, and the grain will not be robust. Vimhevi, however, while these things are not l'chachila, but if you use them kosher, they're kosher. What's the best way to have grain? The best type of grain? The best type of grain is as follows. Nara shana rishayna. You take a field and you plow it the first year without planting. So the first year you just plow. Shana shniya zoira. In the second year you sow, you plant. Kaidim lepesach shivim yoyim, 7 days before Pesach. And if you do this, then it'll have a tremendous amount of fine flour. Now, in order for the flour to be appropriate, you have to make sure there's not too much chaff, but you also have to make sure that there's not too much dust. Apparently, if you over grind flour, it'll have a lot of dust. Flour dust is not considered flour. It's not kosher either. It has to be again sifted to remove the dust. So Ketzad Baidek, how do they check to make sure that it's properly sifted? HaGizbar machnes yadav l'tocho. The Gizbar in the Beis HaMikdash, the Gabbai of the Beis HaMikdash, will put his hand into the flour, and alabay avak psulat shinefenu. If his hand gets covered in dust, that means it needs to be continued sifted. Fine. V'mitliya psula. And if the flour becomes wormy, it's full of worms, it's also puzzle. Very good. So the Mishnah had said that the proper way to deal with the field is the first year you plow, and in the second year you plant. The Gemara wants to know, in the second year, do you also plow and then plant, or just plant? That's the Shayla in the Gemara. Keitzad Isa Nara Shana Rishayna Ibayluhu Heichi Kamar. How are you supposed to read the Mishnah? Do you read it this way? Nara Shana Rishayna. The first year you plow, Ushniya Nara V'Zoira. And in the second year, you plow and then plant. But there should be two plowings. Oidilma Nara Shana Rishayna. Or perhaps no, you just plow the first year. Ushniya Zoira below Nara. And the second year, you just plant without plowing. So the question is, did you plow in the second year or not? So Tashima, there's a very lengthy brisa, and the brisa will basically clearly tell us that you're supposed to plow in the second year as well. The Tanya, the brisa says, Rav Yosi, Av chite karzoyim ukvar achim. The chitim of karzayim and kvar achim, the wheat. I'll just say outside what this means. There was two places called karzayim and kvar achim. Apparently, the wheat of those places is very good. It's very chashav wheat. As we'll see in a moment, one of the ways to get really good wheat is if it has southern exposure. It's exposed to the south side, and that's where there's a lot of sun. It's very good. The only reason why they didn't use the wheat from this place is because there's another halacha, ein maverin ala mitzvahs, which is that we bring wheat that's close to Yerushalayim, and this was not so close to Yerushalayim. But says the Gemara, il male smuchas Yerushalayim. If these cities were near Yerushalayim, hayu maviin mehen, they would use the wheat from these cities, these fields, because these fields had chashav wheat. What made them so chashav? Because what we're looking for good wheat is you want a southern field. And that are plowed for this purpose, which this field was. It was southern, it was run by Chashav Yidin. Why is southern so important? Because apparently during the winter, although the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, it's more southeast and southwest, and therefore it's a lot of southern exposure. So this field was very chashiv. Again, they didn't use it because it wasn't close enough to Yerushalayim, but conceptually they would use it. Now, Keitzarosa, then the Brisa says, what's the proper way to make wheat for the carbon? Nara Shana Rishona, you plow it the first year. Now, here's the line. The question was, what happens the second year? It says the Brisa, Ushniya, and in the second year, Chayrish V'Shayna, you plow it twice. So we had a question of whether you plow it at all in the second year. This brisa, not only does it say you plow it in the second year, you plow it twice in the second year. So it's like a double answer. And now we'll just finish it. Then you plant 70 days before Pesach. That way it'll grow in the fall season, summer season, and it'll be very strong. And if you follow the schedule, the field will produce stalks the size of a zeres, and the ear of corn will be 2 zereses. The kaitzer, then you harvest, umamer, v'dash, v'yored, v'zayru, bar, v'teichen marake. Basically, you prepare the wheat, and you make it into flour. Maybe Gizber and the Gabbai of the Beis Hamikdash will come. The Gizber Machas Yasal Tocho, and he'll put his hand in it. Im also Avak to test if there's a lot of dust. And if there's a lot of dust, you have to keep sifting it until the dust is removed. Mishav Nasan Omri, he says a slightly different version of what the Gizber would do. Instead of putting his hand in, Gizber Sachyad of Shemen. First, the Gizber would put oil on his hand. Umachas Tocha, then put his hand in it with oil at Shemalakol Avak. And that would be a very clear way to test whether there's dust. Okay, Bekitzer, though, you see from this brisa that the methodology in the second year, you had a question of whether you plow in the second year. Not only do you plow twice. Says the Gemara, Katani mi is chayrish v'shayna. Okay, it's a clear answer. Here's the issue, though. The problem is like this. We're trying to figure out whether the Mishnah doesn't mention anything in the second year. The question is, do you plow at all? This brisa says you plow twice. So the question is, though, isn't this brisa and the Mishnah not really seeing eye to eye? It's one thing if the brisa clarifies the Mishnah and says you plow once. But this says you plow twice. That's clearly not like the Mishnah. So maybe it's just a machlokas. Meaning, it's one thing to say, the words of the Mishnah are ambiguous. Do you plow at all? So the brisa says yes, you plow. That's a good answer. But the brisa says you plow twice. So it's clearly not like the Mishnah. So it seems to be a machlokes. Says the Gemara, V'litamech, Masisin le Katani Shaina. Go to the next page. Brisa Katani Shaina. The Brisa says you plow twice. So how do you reconcile that with the Mishnah? The Mishnah, there's a hava meaning whether you plow once at all. It's either one or nothing. This has 2. So b'chalal it seems to not be aligning. So the Gemara says no. Halei kasha kan ba'avuda kan b'she'ein avuda. The answer is really the Mishnah and the Brisa could agree that really you plow once in the second year. The Brisa says twice. The answer is, are we dealing with a cultivated field? Meaning, if it's a field that is already cultivated, basically you have to plow twice before you plant. So if it's a field that was plowed, that was cultivated, the way they explain it, it has to be plowed 3 times before you plant. So you have year 1, you plow once. Year 2, the Mishnah says plow a second time, so it's only 2. So how do you reconcile that? The answer is, was it plowed before the first year? If it was plowed before you even started, before the first year, so it was plowed, then you had the first year and plowed again, then you plow in the second year, it's plowed 3 times. The brisa that says that you plow twice is referring to a situation where it was not cultivated at all. So you just plowed in the first year, then you had to plow twice in the second year. So the brisa and the Mishnah are actually in agreement. You only plow, generally you plow once in the second year. Why would the brisa say twice? Because basically you have to plow 3 times before you plant. If you plowed once in the first year, you'll plow twice in the second year. If you plowed before the first year, you'll do once in the first year, once in the second year. But everyone agrees you have to plow 3 times before you plant. Okay. My Havi Allah, what is the conclusion about how to plow in the second year? So the Gemara says, Tashemad, Tanya, this is the proper way to plow a field. Near Chatzia. In the first year, you plow the entire field, v'zayra chatzia, and you leave half of it, and you only plant half of it. So basically, year 1, plow the whole field, plant the east side. Then, the second year, near chatzia, you plow the entire field, v'zayra chatzia, and you plant the second half. So basically, you plow it a half at a time. You plow it fully, you plant it a half at a time. Okay. All right, very good. This is similar to what we had before, and that is that you should bring barley for the omer from the southern fields, because that way it will have more southern exposure. Tanya Mihachi, the Brisa similarly states, Abba Shaul says, Omer hayaba mebikas beis makla. The barley for the Omer would come from the valley of Beis Makla. Kibashalish Siin Hoisa, the field, that area that they would get the barley was 3 saws big. Visaja Mudremes Haya, and it was a southern field that had a lot of southern exposure. Ubo Chamezerachas, Umimena Chameshekas. And the way they would do it is in the first year, they would plow it entirely, near chatzah v'zayr chatzah, and they would leave half of it empty and only plant half of it with barley seeds. Then, obviously, plow that and then gather that. Then in the second year, they would chatzah v'zayr chatzah. They would plow the whole field and then plant the other side. Okay. Rav Chilki bar Tumi have a karna da'ar. Rav Chilki bar Tumi had a corner plot of land in the southern location, and he did the same thing. Near chatzah v'zar chatzah, near chatzah v'zar chatzah, v'avdal chad shrei, and he was so successful that his field made double productivity as everyone else. Umezavn l'chite l'smida, and he sold the grain for the finest wheat flour. Okay, good. The Mishnah says that if wheat im hitzliya, if the flour became wormy, it's puzzle. The Gemara has a shaila. Tan Rabbanon, Saila Shetliya Ruba Psula, flour that's the majority wormy is puzzle. The Chitin Shetliya Ruben Psulis. And wheat kernels that are majority wormy are also puzzle. Very good. Okay, makes sense. Here's the shaila by Rav Yirmiyah, Beroiv Chita or Beroiv Sa. Let's say I have a pound of wheat kernels. So you said that if it's the majority wormy, it's puzzle. The question is, what do I mean majority? Do I mean half a pound, let's say 0.51 of a pound is wormy, it's puzzle, or no? It has to be that each wheat kernel is roiv wormy. Meaning the question is, do you just say, listen, I have 100 kernels. If 51 kernels are wormy, throw out the whole thing. Or no? It has to be that each kernel is roiv wormy. But 51 to 49 is not a problem. It has to be that each kernel is itself roiv wormy. But the 49, you hear him say, that's the shayla in the Gemara, teku unclear. Another halacha. But
I'm sorry, I don't that.
Meaning, do you go by that it's puzzle if you have 51 kernels that are wormy, that itself you have to throw out the entire shipment, or no? It's only puzzle if it's majority and each kernel is majority wormy. But if it's...
So we're not going by 5149, we're going by basically by each kernel.
That's the shaila. But 5149 wouldn't necessarily be an issue because each kernel is not majority wormy. Maybe 51 have a lot of worm in it, but it has to be that it's not just... It has to be 51 to 49 and each kernel is itself roiv wormy. Meaning basically like this. The way they explain it like this. Did he mean that the sub became disqualified only majority of every kernel is infested with worms? Or does it suffice if the majority of the sub becomes infested, even though some kernels are unaffected? Meaning, according to the first possibility, meaning, is it that 5149 you have to throw out the whole thing? Or perhaps, for it to be a problem, it has to be the majority of the saw is wormy, and each kernel has the majority of worm. But 5149 would not be an issue. That's the shaila. Another shaila. One of the halachas is that if you makdish an animal that's a balmum, it's a lav. So if I have an animal that's missing a leg and I makdish it as a carbon, I'm over a lav. Here's the shaila. Bai Rava, hekdishon. Let's say instead of being makdish an animal that has a balmum, I'm makdish wormy flour. The question is, do we look at wormy flour as like a mum? And the same way, if you're makdish an animal missing a leg, I'm over a lav. Maybe if I'm makdish wormy flour, I'm also over a lav. Or no, you're not over a lav. It's just not, it can't be used. That's the shaila. Maush yilkalem mishum balmum. Do you get lashes for being makdish a balmum? Kivan de puzzle, do we say that because the mincha is invalid with wormy flour, kibalmum dami? It's looked at as a balmum and you'll be over a lav. Oh no, there's no such thing as a balmum by flour. You can't use it, but it's not over a lav. Teku, unclear. Another teku, Tanan Hosam, Kol Eitz Shenimtza Boy Teilas, Pasal Gam Mizbech. The halacha is that if I have a piece of wood that has a worm in it, you can't use that wood as firewood for the Mizbeach. Amar Shmuel, and Shmuel clarified, Lo Yishanu Elalach. This is only true if the wood is moist, avli yavish. But if the dry wood became wormy, gair v'kosher, you could scrape it, remove the wormy section, and it's fine. Meaning if it's moist and there's worms in it, the whole piece of wood is no good. But if it's dry and there's a wormy section, you could just cut off that wormy section. Okay. By Rava, same shaila. What if I'm makdish a piece of wood that's full of worms? So you can't use it. The question is that over a balmum? Do we say that it's like makdish and a balmum, or no? There's no such thing as a balmum by wood. So higdish and maushi yiglam shum balmum. Keeping the pasuk dami behema. Same question. Teku, same answer. All right. Zak the Mishnah regarding the oil of the minchas. Tekoa alpha l'shemen. The oil of the city of Tekoa is the best. The oil of the Menachos were generally taken from the oil of Tekoa. Abishal clarified, Shniala, the second best oil, is Regev Be'ever Yarden, is Regev in the other side of the Jordan. Now, Kolaretzes Hal Kasheris, you could bring oil from any country, Elamikana Yimavian, but they would bring it from Tekoa and from Regev. Those were the best. Ein Mavian Loy Mebeis Asvalim, similar to the flour, we don't bring oil from olive trees in a fertilized field because it smells bad. V'loy Mebeis Ashlachim, v'loy min Masher Minizer Besocho. From all these is the same thing because apparently the olives from such fields are not the best quality and therefore the oil is shvach. V'mhevi, but if you use them kosher b'diavad. Ein Mavian Nipkotin. You can't bring anipkotin oil. What is anipkotin oil? The Gemara will clarify. V'im heavy kosher, but b'diavad is fine. Ein mevian min hagarger and shenishu b'mayim. We don't bring oil from olive berries that were soaked in water. Apparently, it spoils the oil, so it's considered like spoiled oil. V'loy min hakvushim, v'loy min hashlukim, and you can't bring oil from pickled olives or boiled olives. V'im heavy posel, and if you try to bring this extract, it's considered puzzle because it's not considered olive oil. If you take a cooked olive and you squeeze out the juice, that's not olive oil, and therefore it's puzzle. Okay. Now we mentioned that the best oil on the planet is from Tekoa. So the Gemara says is a pasuk in Iyuv. The pasuk says Iyuv. No, it's a pasuk in Shmuel. I'm sorry. V'yishlach Yoav Tekoa v'yikach misham isha chachma. Yoav sent to Tekoa and he took a wise woman. So this is, Yoav was trying to reconcile between David HaMelech and Avshalom, and he was looking for like Eitzah, a woman to help. So he found a woman that was very wise in Tekoa. So Maisha Tekoa, why do you go to Tekoa? So the answer is very simple. Shemen Zayis, the Gemara says, helps your memory. So because it has the best oil on the planet, there were very, very smart people in Tekoa. Okay, Tan Rabbanon, we have a Maisa. The Maisa goes as follows: the Toivel b'Shemen Ragloi. The pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu gives a bracha to the shevet of Asher, and it says Toivel b'Shemen Ragloi. You'll dip your foot in oil, which means that the best oil is in the shevet of Asher's area. Zachalke shel Asher shemoishich shemen kamayev, that the oil flows like a river in the chelik of Asher. Amru, and they said, Mistama Tekoa is in Asher. If I had to, no, Tekoa is actually in Yehuda. Interesting. Apparently, Tekoa was the best, but Asher had the most oil. So it says the Gemara following story. Amru, they said, Apparently, the people of Ludkia needed oil, a lot of oil, as we're going to see in a moment, 1,000,000 barrels of oil. So they hired this guy, and they said, Omer Loi, Leich v'havi l'shemen b'meya ribuy. Go and bring us 1,000,000 manes worth of oil. $1 million worth of oil. Okay. A huge amount of oil. So he's got to find a lot of oil. And obviously the point of the story is he eventually goes to Asher, and he finds in the chelik of Asher a tremendous amount of oil. So Halach Yerushalayim, he goes to Yerushalayim to purchase oil. Amr lo leich letzur. The people in Yerushalayim said, go to Tzur. You'll find oil there. Halach letzur, he goes to Tzur. Amr leich legush chalav. Go to Gush Chalav, which is a subsidy of Tzur. Halach legush chalav, he goes to Gush Chalav. Amr lo leich eitzel ploini l'sad halas. Go to a certain field, you'll find $1 million worth of oil. If he finds this person that's digging around an olive tree, the Goyish Shliach said, do you have $1 million worth of oil that I need? He said, wait until I finish my work today. Fine, by the end of the workday. After the workday, the farmer takes his tools, and he's on his way home, and he's, He's still working on his way home. Now, while all this is happening, meaning the point of the story is, you show up to someone's house, Menachos, you're in the diamonds. I show up and I say, I need $1 million worth of diamonds. You'd expect the guy to be like, of course, stop right here. The guy's like, wait till I end the day. Like it's nothing to him. He's like, okay, at the end of the day, I'll take care of your order. Mamish like nothing. Now the guy thinks that the reason why he's not being taken care of is because the whole thing is shtuyot. The whole thing's a joke. The guy doesn't have any oil and he's got nothing. So he says, Amar loy yeshel shem me'er riboy. So the guy says to the farmer, you have $1 million worth of oil? So he thinks to himself, I think the Jews are making fun of me. There's no way this guy's got $1 million worth of oil. But when the farmer reached his city, his maidservant brought out a small kettle of hot water. They washed the hands and feet, meaning take, calm, like no big deal. They brought out a golden basin filled with oil, and he dipped his feet and his hands with it, because this was the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to Asher, they ate and they drank. He measured out $1 million worth of oil. So the farmer said, do you need more than this? Meaning, you're here anyway, you need more than $1 million. He says, the guy said, yeah, the truth is they need more than $1 million dinarim worth. I don't have any more money left. So so the farmer said, very simple, I'll give you more than $1 million worth, and I'll go with you. We'll go to your, the person that sent you, the city that sent you, and I'll collect. So in addition to $1 million worth, he added 180,000 manas worth of oil. So Amru, the people said, that there was so much oil that there was not one, that there was not any animal, he took every horse, mule, camel in Eretz Yisrael that he hired to schlep the oil back. When the shliach reaches his city, the city goes out to greet him. He said, don't praise me, praise this farmer, that he measured me not only $1 million worth, but 180,000 on top of it. And this is to fulfill the pasuk. There are people that have they're those that give the impression of being wealthy, have nothing, and there goes the impression of being poor and have everything. Meaning, this simple farmer had 1.8 million, 180,000 on top of $1 million, like it was nothing. Okay, let's just get to the Mishnah, if you don't mind. The Gemara continues. So the Mishnah had said you cannot bring an pinkanoin oil. Now the Mishnah said that it's puzzle oil. Here's the problem. The Gemara, I'm going to say it outside, we'll see it inside. The Gemara is going to quote a Brisa. The Brisa says not only is it puzzle, it's not oil. So why does the Mishnah say that it's puzzle oil? I thought it's not even oil. You can't bring on pikon oil, maybe puzzle. Why? Because it's considered a secretion. Meaning, apparently, an olive does not produce oil until it fully ripens. On piknon oil is from unripe olives. It's not even considered shemen. It's considered like the sap of the olives. So our Mishnah, both the Brisa and the Mishnah agree that it's puzzle. The question is, our Mishnah says it's puzzle, which implies that it's oil, but it's shvacha oil. I thought the Brisa says that it's not even oil b'chalal. So is it oil or not? Is it shvach oil or not oil? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef lo kasha, harav chia, harav shim berebi. It's a machlokas tanoim. The Rav Chia zarek le, Rav Chia would throw it out because it's not oil. Rav Shim berebi tovel be, he would dip his food in it because it is oil, just shvach oil. V'simnach ashir mekamtzin, the wealthy act cheap. Meaning Rav Shimon was the son of Yehuda Nasi, was very wealthy, but he himself, even though he was super wealthy, he would use it because he looked at it as shvach oil. But Rav Chia, who was not wealthy, would throw it out. Okay, so the Mishnah and the Brisa both agree that it's puzzle. Just according to the Brisa, it's not oil because that follows the sheet of Rav Chia, and the Mishnah feels it's oil, but it's shvach, and that's a shim berebi. Now we mentioned oil, so we'll quote a famous pasuk in Esther, Shisha Chadashim b'Shemen Amar, that they would prepare the girls 6 months in oil of myrrh to get them ready before they would meet Achashverosh. My Shemen Amar, what is this? Ravuna Bar Chia Amar Satakta. It's saktakta oil. Okay, they say it's balsam oil with an A. Gavin would care about that. Actually, Lara. Rav Yirmiyah bar Rabba Omar Shemen Zayish Lehevi Shlish. It's actually olive oil from olives that are not even a third ripe, unripe olive oil. Tanya, Rav Yuda Omer, an pikanoin shemen zayish levi shlish. That's what an pikanoin is. It's oil from unripe grapes. Lama sachan oisa. So why do the girls anoint themselves in it before they went to Achashverosh? Shemesher is a seir madan is abasar, because it removes the hair and causes the skin to glow. Let's just get to the Mishnah. Now, Tan Rabbanon shemen zayis, olive oil from olives that were kavush, pickled, shaluk, boiled, sharoi soaked in water, bishal shmarim or olive sediment, bishal reach ra, or it has a bad smell, lo yavi, v'mhevi puzzle. All of these oils are puzzle for carbon. Boy Rabba, the same shayla we had before. What if I makdish this oil for the mizbeach, for the mincha? Is it considered being makdish like makdish a balmum and amayver alav, or no? Just you can't use it because there is no such thing as balmum by oil. Balmum, keeping the pasuk maludami, adama ein balmum behema. Teku, same shayla we had before. Teku. I will stop here. I will see you soon. 1 second.